Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar tonight. I think there's a few of you still coming online. We usually start a couple of minutes late, just to allow for those latecomers. My name is Shelley Palman, and I'm a financial advisor and strategic coach here at Enable Me. The topic of flying solo is one I know well, as about 6 years ago, I found myself quite suddenly on my own after 10 years of marriage and with two young children in tow. Were it not for my experience as a coach at Enable Me, I would have found this experience to have been extremely difficult, like 10 times harder than it actually was, and it was really hard. But I was able to use what I had learned through being a coach at Enable Me to help navigate through this really tricky time. And I've done this again and again and again with my clients subsequent to that. Being single, however, is not always just situational. Some people actually make a conscious choice to be on their own, and it can be hugely empowering to steer the ship yourself. You're in control. But whether by choice or not by choice, it's definitely harder, there's no denying that, to be on your own financially. And tonight we discuss how having a money coach in your corner can be super helpful in the journey of you getting ahead financially. So let's start. The disclaimer, as usual, this presentation is just for information purposes only. The content is not intended as a substitute for regulated financial advice. If you need specific advice, come and see the team at Enable Me. This is me. I'm a financial advisor. I'm a strategist. I'm a coach. I think the coaching part of it is the bit I enjoy the most, the people and helping people get ahead faster. My job is to give my clients confidence around their money, identify opportunities to help them be better than what they're currently on track to be doing. People come to me because they want to be awesome, not just to be average. So it's kind of about stretching and coaching, helping you get in control, get your retirement ready, and if we're in that space, looking to grow wealth as we kind of get into our later years. So today's agenda, why a financial plan is crucial for financial independence. It's not good enough to just waft along. We need to be concerted when we're on our own. It's harder. We need to be better, and a plan is the foundation of that. How to build a life that you love through wealth creation and how to do that on your own. We're talking about considerations in terms of investment around your short, mid, and long-term goals and different investment types today. We're talking about how to protect your finances and your financial future, how to adjust your plan for your individual goals, how a coach can help, and then right at the end, we're going to do some Q&A. So people have sent through some questions already. I see someone who's put something in the chat on it. That's us, just to say good evening. If you think of something during the session today, just pop it into the wee question box and I'll try and address some questions at the end. So, yep, love it. The most important relationship you have in life is with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Let's start with breaking the stigma around singlehood. You know, times are changing and more people than ever are achieving great things on their own, like moi has done on my own. There might be many reasons you find yourself single. It could be a separation, a partner's passed away, you're still waiting for the right person, or you just love being independent. Regardless of your reason, let's break away from the shame of being single. Our relationship status doesn't define us, and it doesn't mean we lack choices. It just means we need to work a little harder to get ahead. I love this quote. Mandy Hale is an American author, and she's affectionately known as the single woman. And she's written about, although I think she's now married, but anyway, this is one of her cool quotes about being single. Single is no longer a lack of options, but a choice to refuse to let your life be defined by your relationship status, but to live every day happily and let the ever after work itself out. I love that. Why prioritise being financially independent? Well, shockingly, 50% of Kiwis, and this is a study that the Financial Services Council has done, are feeling unprepared for retirement. I don't know what they think is going to happen, but they're certainly not feeling prepared. 97% of Kiwis are concerned about the cost of living, and this is going to be off the back of, today the inflation is now under control, but it's been a couple of years of really high inflationary periods. So it's been a huge issue around that cost of living, and that affects those of us that are on our own. 56% of people, this is a MediaWorks survey that got done, are living paycheck to paycheck. And this is not unusual. Money comes in and out it goes again. We're spending everything we earn. And the worry with that is no buffer, nothing for a rainy day. And what happens if you lose your job? So quite concerning. Three really good reasons to prioritize financial independence. What does it mean to be financially independent? Having knowledge of your numbers. So what do you earn? What is that amount of money that comes into your bank account every fortnight or month or week? How much are you spending and what's your ability to save? So knowing your numbers is hugely important in the journey to becoming financially independent. What is huge, and this is the case actually for all of my clients, not just my singletons, is having a buffer, so cash for emergencies. I can say after 9 years of tracking people's spend and coaching people around money, the rainy day always happens, all right? The car is always going to break down. There is going to be a dental bill. The kids are going to have a school trip. There's always going to be something. So having cash on hand as a buffer is very empowering. So something really critical for that all of my clients will have. It doesn't have to be savings in the bank. It could be access to a line of credit if you're trying to pay your mortgage off faster as well. Having a wealth creation plan, so that might be in part your KiwiSaver, it might be paying off your mortgage faster, it might be saving towards retirement or looking at investing in shares or managed funds or other forms of investment, but having a plan around the wealth that you do need to create. Because I always say, we actually have no choice but to create wealth. So wealth creation is not for the wealthy. We have to accumulate wealth because one day, unless you want to work until you die, you're going to stop work. And so what are you going to live off? We have to create wealth over our working life. Really important part of being financially independent is having your plan B sorted. And we're going to talk about this later in the presentation today. What if? What is the what if? You know, what would you do if this happened, if that happened? So having a plan B is super important. And what we find really important is having that support network. So whether that be professionally or friends or family, having people around you in your journey towards becoming independent. The reality is, and there's no, not to be the killjoy, we do acknowledge it's much harder being single, you know, but the narrative doesn't have to be our reality. Times are changing. There are more than ever, you know, people than ever before doing great things on their own. You know, but it is harder. So what we find is that you don't have those economies of scale. You have higher costs. You know, you have to pay for broadband, whether or not there's one or two of you using it. You know, there's not those economies of scale of living with somebody else. Really hard to get lending on one income, whether that be to buy your own home or if you're close to being mortgage free or mortgage free on your own home to get an investment property. Much, much harder on one income. We often find that people on their own have decision overwhelm. They get really muddled around what they should be doing and they have very few people they can bounce ideas off. So it kind of leads to a little bit of not even just decision overwhelm, but just overwhelm in general around their money. Yeah, and this is a bit of a funny one, the uncomfortable sofa or bunk bed on group trips, third wheel or fifth wheel or seventh wheel, having the uncomfortable sofa bed, and the old unsolicited advice from well-intentioned friends and family asking when you are going to partner up and settle down. Yeah, no. So this is why a financial plan is more crucial than ever. Where do we start? Every great plan starts with its foundations. So this is my favorite quote. My favorite author, James Clear, he's written a book called Atomic Habits. And my favorite quote, and if you're my client, you would have heard me say this many, many times before, that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. What he's saying here is it's much more important to have systems, structure, and really healthy habits around your money than having some lofty goal, because we're all human and one day we have really strong willpower, the next we just don't. So systems are the thing that will help us when we don't feel that we can achieve. So for any client, not even those on their own, we always say this is the foundation and we need to get this foundation in place so we can then start to lean into wealth creation and being sorted for retirement. So the three that are really important are money habits. So going back to talking about habits in general, atomic habits, we just want our clients to have a really healthy way of behaving around their money. And I'm going to talk a little bit to money personalities in a second. Having a goal is really important. And where people can come unstuck with goals is that they have no idea Number one, what their goals are. Number two, what they might cost. And number three, how they're going to get there. So breaking it down into kind of achievable chunks, and even, to be honest, just articulating the goal, putting numbers around it and going, well, hey, we're actually 3 months, 3 years, 6 years, 13 years away from this goal, but here's how we're going to get there. So goal setting is huge. It gives you something to motivate and inspire to run towards. Cash flow management is key. So that goes back to speaking to habits and systems and structure and routine around your money. So those three things are really important. These other things here are super important too. So if you have short-term debt or a mortgage, we want that structured optimally so you can clear that debt as quickly as possible. And if you have insurance and KiwiSaver, which you should, we want to make sure that those financial products are fit for purpose. But in terms of those habits and goals and, excuse me, cash flow management, it starts with understanding your money personality. So Aisha Scott is actually the Deputy Director of the Auckland Centre for Financial Research and a Senior Lecturer, Overachiever, at AUT. She said, knowing your money personality can help understand your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to financial decision making and give you the tools to improve your resilience and security. So a bit of a know thyself to help you be better financially. So what are the personalities? So we like to pigeonhole our clients into three distinct personalities: shopper, saver, or plodder. So a shopper, they're fun. They derive emotional satisfaction from spending money. And in the absence of a really compelling goal, they prefer to spend. With a saver, they're very energized by having money in the bank. I often find with my saver clients, they're really motivated and driven by financial security. And sometimes they can have a scarcity or poverty mindset, my savers. They're too afraid to spend anything. They feel a little bit sick when they spend money because they feel better when they have money in the bank. That's a saver. And a plodder's kind of somewhere in between. They don't love to spend, but they're not really saving either. So they're kind of just floating along, the plodder. So we've got a little poll, I think, coming up. Yes, a poll question. So what do you think that your money personality is? And I'm hoping, Amelia, that do we pop this up on the screen? Are we going to collate these results? Do I need to do that? The choices are, yes, I think I'm a shopper, or I think I'm a plodder, a saver, or I have no clue. So hopefully up on the screen, it's going to allow you to tick what you think you are, and we'll give you a couple of seconds to do that, and then we'll collate the results of that. I'm going to speak a little bit more to the strengths and weaknesses of these personalities. Oh, we have a lot of plodders on the call. Okay. Not very many shoppers, or you're not calling yourself out as a shopper. We have mostly plodders. Half of you are plodders, and 34% are savers. Okay. I wonder whether the more plodder saver inclination is because you're on your own and there's that feeling of needing to have financial security with having savings. So that's really interesting. Thanks, guys. And 3% don't have a clue. Love it. Okay. Mostly plodders and savers on the call. Okay. So how does your money personality influence financial success? So I always say there's a huge difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it. Execution is key. If you stand still, you're actually going backwards. And what some people believe is that they need to make more money to be more financially successful. That's absolutely not the case. My best clients, the ones who are more financially successful, are the ones that actually have median incomes. They're not silly with their money like my high income earners can sometimes be. Knowing your personality really helps us as your money coach to know what levers we need to pull to help you get ahead. We know that financial success is 20% strategy, but 80% behavior, which is why we dwell so much on the money personality and the money behavior stuff, and why it's really important to put guardrails in place for certain personality types. So another nuance to that money personality, so in addition to maybe being a shopper, saver, or plodder, we have these other three kind of personalities or tendencies. One is that safety warden. So these are your really risk averse. So I find that my savers tend to go hand in hand with being a safety warden, not necessarily always. My adventurers are more comfortable with risk, but sometimes they take too much risk and they're a little bit unaware of the tolerance to the risks that they can take. And then we get the dreamer. So they're just kind of they kind of know what they want, but they just don't really know how to get there. So they have these big ideas, but nothing ever kind of really happens. So Warden, Adventurer, and Dreamer are the three other parts. And the third one, and I actually think this is quite powerful, and in some instances, this can actually be, I shouldn't really talk about marriage because this is about flying solo, but yeah, sometimes it's a marriage saver, understanding these personalities. And I have to say, you can actually do an online quiz. So these personality types derive from a book by an author called Gretchen Rubin. The book is called The Four Tendencies, and I often recommend this to my clients to have a read, but there's an online quiz that you can take to find out which tendency you are. And it's in relation to your willpower and your motivation to act. The four tendencies is what you can see on the screen. So upholders and rebels are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. So your upholder is your rule follower. They set goals and achieve them, a little bit uptight. And as you can imagine, the rebel is the complete opposite. I'm not going to bother setting a New Year's resolution. I know I'm never going to stick to it. Why would I join a gym? I'd just be donating. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. They don't want to be held to anything, the rebel. So the upholder and the rebel are kind of on either side of the spectrum, and they're also the least common. I don't see upholders and rebels that often. They're about 5% each of the population. The other 90% falls under questioner or obliger. So most of us fall under these two categories. The obliger, I won't call them a people pleaser. It's not that bad. An obliger must have somebody else holding them accountable. They often tend to put other people's expectations ahead of their own. So we kind of find that with obligers, they'll go along and they'll oblige everybody else ahead of themselves until the point that they blow. And we call that obliger rebellion. So obligers need external accountability to do things that are even good for themselves, like exercise or save more or get mortgage free faster. They absolutely need that, somebody else holding them accountable. So, and a questioner is the opposite. So they're quite good at holding themselves accountable, but the trick is with a questioner, they have to believe in what they're doing. So questioners are prone to overanalysis, I find, and they ask lots of questions. They need lots of evidence. They're naturally skeptical. Why would I pay my mortgage off faster, Shelley? Show me the evidence that will help me, get ahead faster. Where is the data? Send me the spreadsheet. So that's the questioner. So questioners are pretty good at, say, sticking to an exercise plan if they believe that it's a good thing for them to do to exercise or go to the gym. They're naturally skeptical about other people expecting things of them. So I find questioners a little tricky to coach. So it would be interesting for you to do the quiz, and if you have a partner or a future partner, get them to do it too. I did that with my partner when we first met. So how does your money personality change the plan of attack? I guess it's kind of like, let's self-diagnose what your money personality is. And we've kind of put together a person who's a shopper. This is a particular blend. So this person is a shopper, an adventurer or a risk taker, and they're a questioner. So when there's a shopper in the house, we've got to disincentivize the spending and make it a little bit harder for them to spend. So that speaks to the way we manage our money. So making it a little bit harder. So credit cards are a no-no for a shopper. We have to get really tight around our money structures and the way we spend our money. We also need to find an investment product with a little bit of spice. So if there's an adventurer in the mix, as well as a shopper, they're probably going to be keener to do an investment that's a bit more risky. So if we're recommending a really safe investment for someone who's a shopper adventurer, they're going to be a little bit bored by that. And it's going to stop them from maybe kind of doing the bit where they have to kind of save to actually get to where they need to be. So an investment product that's a bit spicy, have really good visibility. So this is where the question a bit kicks in. So this person is a questioner. They need reasons for why they're doing this. Why? Why would I pay my mortgage off? Why would I grow my wealth? Where is the evidence? So questioners are going to need a lot of data, and they're going to need to do a lot of analysis. But for shoppers, they just need a good enough reason to not spend. So that goal has to be really compelling. When I have a shopper client, and particularly if they're a questioner, I help them to understand that they have this goal that's really inspiring, and it's something that they understand and that they want and that they believe in, that's going to compel them to run towards that goal rather than me trying to push them towards that goal. They need to be drawn, this particular blend. The next blend we have here is we have a plotter, a dreamer, who's also an obliger. So when they're a plotter and an obliger, these guys are definitely going to need a coach. They need a clear action plan. They need clear goals. They need to take away some of that analysis paralysis. That's what plotters can tend to do. They just go nowhere. They overthink things and they do nothing. There's always an opportunity cost to doing nothing. So sometimes it's about showing them the best way and taking away the need for them to actually decide so that they can take action. For a plotter, it's highlighting the opportunity cost of standing still and what the benefits are of actually taking action and providing validation that they're on the right track. For obligers, it's really important to say, hey, this is when we're meeting, this is where your mortgage should be paid down to, or this is where your investment fund should be at in terms of your investment savings by this date. And external accountability is key. If you come out as an obliger and a plotter, you're likely to be going nowhere unless someone else holds you accountable. So respond very well to coaching. Understanding your tendencies is really important when you're making a financial plan as a couple, but when you're on your own, being the reality of it's much harder to get ahead when you're on your own, it's absolutely critical to understand your money personality so you can hack yourself to be better. So knowing all of this about yourself can allow you to optimize your cash flow. And when we talk about cash flow, it's money in, money out. What's coming in? How much of it can we keep? So we talk about fritter, and most Kiwis fritter about 15% of what they earn. And for ease of maths, you know, if it's $100,000 that's coming in the door, you'd be frittering 15 grand. And I know that sounds like a lot, but that is what we see on average, that people are frittering. So really important with fritter to understand that fritter is not going on holiday, or if that's what you enjoy, it's not maybe if you have children, taking them out for an outing, because that's something that's really important. Fritter is things you spend your money on that don't actually make you any happier. So for a lot of us, paying less interest to the bank certainly doesn't make me happy, paying interest to the bank. Paying too much for my utilities, having too many subscriptions. Food's a biggie. A fritter, it's going to get to the supermarket too many times, not meal planning, doing too many takeaways, and of course, paying too much in terms of bank fees because we have the wrong bank accounts in place. So maximizing your cash flow is the engine room to getting you ahead. We need to address the fritter, get systems and structures in place, and then we can look to accelerate you ahead. Why is financial independence awesome? Number one, the assets are yours. And as long as you have the right protections in place around you, which I'm going to speak to in a minute, they're yours to keep and they can't be taken away from you. You have more control over the wealth that you want to accumulate. So you can sit down and go, well, hey, actually, when I retire, I want to be able to travel every year because that's really important to me. I don't have children or I don't have a partner. I love to travel and I have family overseas. It's really important for me that I actually create wealth. I'm happy to take risk and I want to accumulate enough wealth to allow myself to travel. You can make those decisions on your own. You have freedom to prioritize your finances. You can cut out the things you don't want. You can factor in the things that you do. And you're not weighed down by anyone else. So for some people, they bring debt into a relationship or just money issues in general that can actually stop a couple from getting ahead. So I think when you're on your own, it's quite powerful. It's you. I know the buck stops with you, but you can be quite light on your feet. If you decide to do something and you get the right support around you, you're on your way. It's on you. Really critical, though, to have the right support in your corner. And I think this is the rub with being on your own. Often there's a lot of fear around money. And so having that support to help you overcome that fear or that need for security in terms of being on your own is key. How do we turn financial independence into financial success? I wanted to share a story about one of my clients who I've worked with very closely over the last 6 years. So this particular client ended up separating. She walked away with half of the equity from the marital home. So there was 700,000 of equity. She got half. That's the law in New Zealand. Unfortunately, she was the main child, the main child rearer, and she was working part-time. When they separated, her husband turned around and said to her, I need to focus on my job. I need for you to have 80% custody of the children. So he only had them every second weekend. So working part-time, 350K in her hand, not enough to buy a mortgage-free home. She was in Auckland, by the way, and she had the kids, and she'd taken that bit of a hit in terms of her career. What she did next, in conjunction with my help, is she bought a small, modest 2-bedroom home. It was really important for her to stay in the same area where the family home was. So she paid $750,000 for a little 2-bedroom modest home in the same area, knowing that she had friends around her to help out with the kids. She had to take on a mortgage, $400K. Her children had to share a room. That was the reality of the situation. Because she was working with me, and she was working with me over the course of the separation, or she had just separated when she came to see me, I was able to kind of articulate to her, hey, you're actually going to have to negotiate for a slightly higher child support than what is the IID entitlement. So I helped her negotiate a higher spousal maintenance for a couple of years and higher child support from her ex-husband. And so what she did, so over the next couple of years, she did that. She had the child support. She increased her work hours slowly. The modest 2-bedroom home, renovated the kitchen. And actually, we put together a plan to get her mortgage free in 9 years on that mortgage. As time went by, she took on less of the childcare until they kind of went 50-50 in terms of childcare, and that allowed her to really lift her income and go hard with her career. But it wasn't easy, but she did it. And we had her on track to be mortgage-free in 9 years if she executed on what we needed her to execute on. So really powerful, and it helped her to feel that she had a plan through that time, and that the plan was actually great, and that she was going to be okay. We did that together. So where she's at now, a couple of years in, she actually met somebody unexpectedly, and she continued on with her plan. A couple of years after that, they decided to combine forces. She was able to contribute $505,000 to the joint property that she ended up buying with her partner. That was after 2 years. She got a relationship property agreement put in place. That was the first thing I said to her when she met this new partner. And now together, they're on track to be mortgage-free in 2 years, and they have an investment property together. Because even though she's met this new partner, actually, when you meet someone second time round, particularly if there are children in the mix, you only have half a house. So there's still work to be done. So I said to her, do you know what? For the two of you, I know you don't have a huge mortgage, but we need to get that mortgage gone as quickly as possible. And you guys need to buy an investment property. You guys need to do joint wealth creation, because, once bitten, twice shy. If it happens again, or if something happens to him, he passes away, he's got kids and they're going to want to make a claim on that estate. So you can't rest, even if there is someone else in the mix. A man is never a plan, I always say. Why focus on financial success? Look, it's about creating options. And when we talk about options about living a happy life, choices around the work that you do, choices around how long you work for, feeling really empowered to say no when you're financially successful. So if you're in a space where you are smashing it, you're earning a good income, you're on track to be mortgage free, you've got a retirement plan bubbling away in the background, and you get offered maybe a promotion, that promotion might add a lot of stress into your life. Being financially successful, you can actually choose, hey, do I actually want that extra 15 or 20,000? Is that going to be meaningful to me? Or am I actually okay on my own? And having that choice, whether or not you take on a whole heap of extra stress just to get another 15 grand to kind of get you ahead and scrape by, when you've actually already got a financial plan that's going to have you on track to be financially successful, you can be in a position of being able to choose whether or not you take on that extra stress. And that's power in my eyes. So options is power. Really important with our singletons around security. So you're on your own, the buck stops with you. Financial security is very, very important. So the quicker we can become financially successful with a plan, it helps you to feel safe. Solving a problem, and for most of my clients, this looks like more of a long-term issue around retirement. Is there a shortfall in retirement? Is your KiwiSaver going to serve you or not? Usually the answer is no. Is there an issue that we need to address now while you're still able to work? Some of us, if we have children, it's about being able to help them. And again, choices for us, but choices for our children. the choice to send them to a slightly better school, the choice to send them on that school trip that's going to add to the richness of their school experience, the choice to help them through uni. That's another reason to be financially successful. And hey, just to be ambitious, to be better than what you are, better than you've been before. But crucially, it's about your independence. So on to question number 2, what does financial success mean for you? Lots of different options here. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think. Does it mean having a lot of money and not worrying about it? Financial success, owning my own home, whether it's mortgage free or not, being debt free, being able to retire, being able to travel, or something else? I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer. Retirement. Okay, so again, nearly half have answered about being able to retire comfortably. Yeah, and a smattering across all of the other ones. Owning your own home is really important, that stability, particularly if you have children, and then being debt-free on it. That could be short-term debt. Yeah, not worrying about money. A lot of singletons, that's a huge issue, is just the worry and the lack of sleep. And travel, yeah, I'm surprised to see 50%. I want to travel. I suppose if you're on your own, right? That's a big part. Okay, cool. Thanks for that, guys. I'll close that off. Next slide. Click, click, click. Too many clicks. I'm clicking too fast. Right. Financial success differs from person to person. So for some of us, that means having savings, having the money in the bank. For some of us, it means being mortgage free on our family home. For some of us, it's around cars and holidays. I suppose if you are on your own, and one of the benefits of choosing to be on your own, particularly without children, is being able to travel. That's one of the bonuses. And for some of us, it's helping out loved ones. So that could be a mum or a dad, or it could be a sister or brother or children if you have them. The beauty of being on your own is you get to decide. So what does financial success look like for you? For a lot of you, it's knowing that you're prepping to be sorted for retirement. But I think I like being on your own. You get to live your own values and do what you believe to be right. You can set your own goals without having someone else kind of in the mix. And it depends where you're at in life in terms of, what financial success looks like to you. When you're younger, it might be a lot around travel. As you start to trend into your 50s and 60s, it's around retirement and security and choices around work. So thinking about the different types of investment options that are out there, and this goes whether you're in a couple or on your own, it's quite confounding. Not money under the mattress, as the picture suggests. But yeah, I mean, risky things like digital currencies, going into business, forestry, shares are very volatile, through to kind of what we would consider to be safe investments, such as term deposits. Maybe we think gold is safe at certain times. Index funds, those kind of passive investment funds that just follow the market. Lots of different options in terms of investments, but the key when you're choosing an investment is balancing out the risk versus the return. So for some of us, if we are that more adventurous kind of risk-taking money personality, we're keen to kind of lean into extra risk. But the time frames are so important. And I think this is where a lot of people come unstuck with investment. For us, it's about understanding what is your goal and what are your time horizons around that goal. So if your goal is to sort retirement, how many working years do we have left? If it's kind of between 10 and 20 or more, then we can lean into some pretty risky stuff because there's time to correct any kind of corrections in the market. If you're leaning up towards that kind of 60 or getting close to retirement, we need to bring that back in terms of risk. But sometimes we actually have to take more risk than we feel comfortable taking because we're actually not going to get to where we need to be. So sometimes your risk profile is a mismatch in terms of the risk that you need to take. So when we work with our clients, we look to, hey, where do you need to land in retirement? What is your retirement number? And we build a big old spreadsheet around that. So we understand what you need to spend to live a happy life. We understand what those extras are that you're going to spend your money on. We get you going out to age 90. So we assume retiring at 65, unless you tell us otherwise. And we try and get you out to age 90. And we go, right, if we deduct off the pension, what is our number And once we know our retirement number, we can then kind of come back to the present and go, well, if you keep doing what you're currently doing, you're actually not on track. Houston, we have a problem. So even though you're a safety warden plodder, we're actually going to have to push you a little bit harder to get a little bit higher return, which is going to be a bit more risky because you are not tracking to where you need to be. So balancing out risk and return depends on your situation and actually the requirements of your financial plan around the wealth we need to create. So this is a really important conversation, and I say to all of my single ladies, or men, if they happen to say they've met somebody, get a relationship property agreement, start talking about it early doors. Have the conversation. If that other person thinks it's weird, in my mind, that's a red flag. You've accumulated this wealth on your own. You've fought hard for this. You've worked really hard. We are not giving half of it away to anyone else. The law in New Zealand is if you're considered to be de facto for 3 years, half of it gets lost to that other person. Goes both ways, obviously. But in my mind, if you've met someone for the first time, the money conversation is actually a really important one to have. And part of that is protecting the wealth that you have actually accumulated to date. And what that looks like is what we call a relationship property agreement, or some people call it a prenup, or some people call it a contracting out. You're essentially contracting out of the law that relates to you eventually becoming what would be considered to be a de facto couple. So that's a really important document to get done. You have to do it through the lawyer, and each of you have to seek independent legal advice. So what that looks like, usually one person's lawyer writes it up, you guys kind of agree to the terms, and then they take it to their lawyer to kind of sign it off and give them independent financial advice. So that's a very, very, very important document. Some of our clients, they choose to protect their assets with a trust. They aren't as watertight as they used to be. So even if you have a trust, I would still recommend being really clear and upfront with a relationship property agreement. When I met my new partner, it was almost in the first couple of months we were having conversations around money. I may have asked him if he had a credit card at our first date, but we certainly kept that money conversation really open because it's a really important thing when you're entering into a relationship with somebody. The plan B stuff that I alluded to earlier in the presentation today, really I was talking about having the right insurances in place. When you're on your own, it's scary if something goes wrong and the buck stops with you. So it's always that, what if I got a diagnosis? What if I work so hard that I have a stroke and I end up as a vegetable? What would you do in that situation? Would you go and live with your parents? Would you have family that you could lean on? Would someone financially support you or not? And if the answer is, yeah, I could probably move in with my parents if they're still alive, but how are you going to live and how are you going to pay for your medical bills? So if you're on your own and you do not have personal insurances, I would recommend immediately going and talking to an insurance broker. You can come to us. We have an insurance team that we can refer you to get those insurances in place. And a lot of it is protecting your income because you are your biggest asset. So the different insurances that you might consider would be like an income protection, which replaces your salary if something happens, if you get a diagnosis or have an accident. A trauma policy is a lump sum payout. So if there is a diagnosis, you can have these in conjunction with each other. So I have a trauma policy and an income policy. So a trauma policy is where you get a lump sum as soon as you get the diagnosis, if it's a serious diagnosis. So it could be 80,000, 100,000, 200,000, you get to choose. But that comes in if something bad happens, and that can help to pay for medical bills or help to pay for the mortgage until that income protection cover kicks in. And obviously health insurance covers the medical costs if you need to go private. Estate planning is really important too, and this is something that I think single people sometimes overlook. If you have a desire to want to know who would inherit your wealth on the event of your passing, that's the will. So if you don't have a will, then it's up to common law, and it could go to someone that you don't want it to go to. If you have a particular family member, it could be a niece or a nephew, you need to stipulate that within the will, and it's a very simple document to get done with your lawyer. The EPOA is what we call enduring power of attorney. So this is if you don't die. So you have a terrible accident and you're horribly maimed and you don't die, and you are incapable of making decisions for yourself. This is actually a really important document when you're on your own. It's getting someone who you trust to make those really important calls on your behalf. So it could well be that they need to make the call to sell your home because you've had an accident, you have to move in with family members, and they need to sell your house to kind of fund your medical bills and set up the house to kind of to house you. So the enduring power of attorney is the document that would allow them to actually sign that sale and purchase agreement to sell your house if that was necessary, or any other investments that you might have, such as a managed fund or money in the bank. So an enduring power of attorney, again, get it done through your lawyer, and it has to be someone that you trust. So a very important document to have in place. So those three things are quite critical in terms of making sure your house is in order and your ducks are in line. And I think from a financial security point of view, really important to have all of those things in order. Creating financial success, it means taking a chance on yourself, that you don't have to take those risks on your own. We're here to help. And this is, I think, the biggest piece of feedback I have from my clients who are on their own is that very intangible benefit of having that sounding board. A lot of people, when they're on their own, they feel that they can't talk to their friends about, say, how much they earn or how much they spend in specifics like that. So to have that coach there where they can actually say, hey, this is what I'm earning, this is what I intend spending, these are the things that are important to me, and these are my goals, can be really helpful, and it can help you to make decisions. You get that sounding board to kind of bounce ideas off. So we partner with our clients to help them feel more empowered around their money, but also to feel really supported with anything that they might like to achieve moving forward. So we do this by diagnosing their starting point. We go, right, if you do have a mortgage, this is what it is. This is how much equity you have in your house. This is what you're currently on track to be doing. So that's what we call identifying your landing point or your current trajectory. Then we look at how can we get you there faster. So, I always say what you've done in the past is no indication of what you're capable of achieving moving forward, particularly when you've got someone cheering you on from the sidelines. So assess your capability. Someone from the outside going, hey, you can actually do this. And I believe that you can do this because I've seen my clients do it before, is so powerful. We help you then design a plan or a strategy to kind of get you growing your wealth. And that might look like saving up to get into your first home. If you are in a home, getting mortgage free as quickly as possible, growing your wealth and investing towards retirement. So what is the plan around that? What do we need to execute on, and by when? And of course, becoming your trusted sounding board. So we're here when our clients work with us. We work with most of our clients for 12 months. Some of our clients, we work with them for 6 months. But we're your sounding board across that time period that you're working with us. We expect to receive a phone call or an email if something changes, or if you're about to embark on something that's really exciting. We expect to be the person that's there to support you through that. So I think the big thing here is executing on the plan, understanding your tendencies, your money personalities, the headwinds, the setbacks that you're going to have as someone on your own, and actually working around those to help you move forward faster and increasing the odds of you arriving at your destination in time, or in my mind, before time. Really important that we build a buffer that's all around minimizing risk and helping you to feel more secure and resilient. We help with the heavy lifting and the heavy thinking around this complex world of finances and what we should be achieving on. We bring in experts if we think that you need them, and that could be in that space around investment, property, insurance, things like that. We have access to specialists and experts in all of those different realms that we can help you get ahead. And the big thing, particularly for you obligers, is holding you accountable to executing on your plan. That's the biggie. So that brings the majority of the presentation to a close tonight. We do have space for a Q&A, and I think I've left 15 minutes. Yes, beautiful. But before we go into the Q&A, we would like to invite you to come along and see us. And tonight we're doing a special. So if you book an initial consultation with us tonight, you don't have to hold it, but if you book it tonight, the consultation, they run for about 60 to 90 minutes. And it's our initial diagnostic session with one of our coaches. If you book tonight, you'll get that for $149. If you book after this date, that's going to be discounted down to $249 for you. It's normally valued at $400. And it's between 60 and 90 minutes, talking about your situation now and what we could achieve, and what opportunities are there for you moving forward. So we'd like to extend that offer. If you're keen to take us up on that offer, you can either go to enable.me hashtag /flying solo Shelley, or you can scan the QR code. We have time for some questions, Amelia.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. First off, we have a question asking if you have any tips for those considering starting a family on their own. They have in brackets that this might be through expensive fertility treatment. Financially, it's a big
Yeah.
investment for most couples, but how do we do it on our own?
Yeah, and the thing is, when you're doing child rearing on your own, it's damn expensive, not only just to get said child, because you have to go through fertility treatment oftentimes, unless you can kind of find someone to help you out there. Generally, you have to go through fertility treatment, and that comes at a huge cost. So for some of us, it's just a case of saving up for it. And I guess making sure that we're maximizing the amount that we can save in the years leading up to when you intend to going through that fertility treatment. So if we know it's going to cost $40,000 for X number of rounds of IVF, then we're going to try and find that fritter by understanding your numbers, understanding your tendency and money personality, and set that as a really hard goal and understand how we're going to be on track to kind of be able to save up for that. For some of my clients, they could pay for that through adding to their mortgage, but you're going to be under financial pressure when that child arrives. You know, getting the child is one thing. When they arrive, it's the cost of daycare, it's your level of tiredness, getting a kid to daycare, doing a full day at work, and then picking said child up from daycare at the end of the day. It is a hard slog, and generally I'd recommend having a lot of family support around you if that's something that you're intending on embarking on, because we have to understand, okay, if we are on a current trajectory just without having the child, what is that trajectory, and is it good enough? Are we on track to being mortgage free if we have a house? And are we on track to being mortgage free by a good age that's going to get us to where we need to be in retirement? If we layer in a kid on top of this, 40 grand, could be more in terms of fertility treatment, hopefully less, but could be more, and daycare costs. So daycare obviously is expensive in the first couple of years. How are we going to fund that maternity leave? If your work covers you to 6 months, are you going to go back at 6 months, or are you going to try and have that year? So saving up for that mat leave. But I think crucially, it's understanding the impact of your base financial plan by adding in that child. And then you can kind of weigh up and go, well, is this going to put me under massively undue financial pressure? Or can I actually, if I'm to get really intentional, can I add this child in, but because I'm being better with money now, I'm still going to be okay. It will put me off, you know, becoming mortgage free in quite the period of time, but it's going to be so fulfilling to my life, and I can still make it work. So I think having that strategy in place and being really eyes wide open leading into that decision to kind of go through that treatment is going to be the best thing for someone who's kind of considering that, to be really clear on the financial implications and the implications to your life so that you know that you're making the right call by doing this. Great question.
Thank you. Our next question is, do you have any advice for how to buy investment property with a single income?
Yeah, it's really hard. The biggest thing is accessing lending when you're trying to buy an investment property, because we don't all have 700 or a million, you know, in our back pocket. So we need to go to the bank, and it's really hard to get lending when you're on your own. So if you're in your own home, so for some of my single clients that they want to have a bit more freedom, they actually don't have a family home. They tend to be what we call a rent vestor. So, but if you're of the vanilla type where you do have your own home, you pretty much, as someone who's on their own, need to get it almost mortgage free. So the first port of call, if you are in your family home, is getting that mortgage paid off ASAP. It pretty much has to be, your mortgage has to be very low for you to be able to then leverage to buy another property. Because when you go to the bank and they assess, you know, they've got a responsible lending code that they have to adhere to, and so they have these affordability calculators. Basically, with the affordability calculator, they say, how much are you earning? How much is your current mortgage, if there is one? And if we were to add another 650,000 for an investment property on top of that, on principal and interest at an 8% interest rate, can you still afford it? So the lending is the tricky piece when you're trying to do an investment property on your own. It's not insurmountable. We just have to address you smashing out your home mortgage as quickly as possible. Or if you don't want to have a home mortgage and you want to accumulate a couple of rental properties and just rent where you want to live, then we've got to go really hard to get you into that deposit, to get you into that first investment property. Then we go hard on that mortgage to buy the next one, and we leverage off that equity. So the first port of call is maximizing your surplus, understanding your ins and your outs, going hard with debt reduction or savings, and then looking to borrow. It's tricky, but it's not insurmountable. I've done it with a few singletons before. You have to go hard.
Thank you. For the last question, we have two questions that are kind of related. The first question is from a single person over 50. They're struggling to qualify for a mortgage because the monthly repayments would exceed their income. They want to know what they can do to make this more achievable. And then there is another question about whether you have any thoughts on whether a single person should join forces with a friend to make buying a house easier.
Yeah, already when you asked that first question about the lady over 50 who's I was like, she needs to join forces. So yeah, they really are related, and this is commonly done. It's not something to enter into lightly. If you're on your own and you know that you've got to get into a house for stability, and eventually when you retire, like you don't want to be renting for the rest of your life. So if you know that it's really important to get into a home and you're worried about that property market running away from you, then absolutely join forces with someone. And I see this happen often with siblings. It could happen with a good friend. Really, really important that you sit down and you get a watertight legal agreement around this. So how much has each of you put in? How much have each of you borrowed? And actually, what are your goals? So sit down with that other person, if you can find somebody, and go, hey, what is your intention? If we're going to buy this house, are you going to be there for the long term? Because what can often happen is you can get a mismatch of goals in that situation. So you might find someone who's slightly younger or slightly older, or someone might be intending on trying to meet somebody. But if you're kind of in your 50s and you're kind of like, gee, I'm running out of time here, try and join forces with somebody. And if you can't do that, then your only alternative is to become possibly a rent investor. So that would be going really hard to save up a deposit on an investment property where somebody else helps you to pay that mortgage. So how can you minimize your fixed costs to save up as much as you possibly can over a couple of years? Get side hustles in, minimize your rent, move in with friends if you need to, go hard to get that deposit, and then buy something at a lower value that's not where you're living, that somebody else can help pay the mortgage on. So that could be option number 2 for the lady in her 50s. But yeah, joining forces is a good idea. It can help you get on the ladder, but you've got to be really clear and upfront and get a really watertight legal agreement in place, because it can sometimes go a little bit wrong. Amelia, we forgot about the book giveaway.
Oh no, I didn't forget. It's in the chat. A lot of people have responded.
Oh, good. Okay, I forgot to say about it at the start.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No, thank you to everybody who participated. We have some winners.
Great.
So
Oh, yay.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go for your
So
life.
our 3 winners are Ciara Donahy, Sarah Carroll, and Justine Heen. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly, but congratulations. I'll be emailing you for
Awesome.
your postal address to send the book to. So you can look out for that email.
Enjoy the read.
Yeah.
Well done. And sorry for not mentioning that at the start. All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this session tonight. I think that was all. There was nothing else we wanted to cover off, was there, Amelia?
No, I think everything is pretty much covered. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.